The fluorescent lights of the conference room buzzed faintly, casting an unforgiving glow over the sleek mahogany table. Across from her sat Richard Langston, the billionaire investor whose name had become synonymous with transformative tech deals. His tailored suit and perfectly coiffed silver hair radiated power, while his piercing blue eyes seemed to dissect every movement she made. The air conditioning hummed steadily, doing little to dispel the tension that had been building for hours. Clara's fingers traced the edge of the leather-bound folder in front of her, her nails leaving faint impressions on the polished surface. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders, the culmination of 6 months of relentless preparation, countless sleepless nights, and strategic maneuvering that had brought them to this very table. The numbers were staggering, a $700 million deal that would revolutionize not just her company's future, but potentially reshape the entire industry landscape. Yet something felt off. The subtle shift in Langston's demeanor during the final negotiations hadn't escaped her notice. The way his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for ruthlessness, kept glancing at her watch while tapping notes into her tablet. The carefully worded clauses that had appeared in the contract overnight, altering key terms they'd previously agreed upon. Clara's stomach churned as she realized these weren't mere technicalities, they were calculated moves designed to chip away at everything she'd fought for. The memory of her recent performance review flashed through her mind, unbidden. Her supervisor's condescending tone still echoed in her ears. While your work has been satisfactory, we need to manage expectations about leadership roles. Satisfactory. The word had burned like acid, especially after she'd single-handedly secured 3 major accounts in the past quarter alone. The subsequent email confirming her pay cut had arrived just days before this crucial meeting, a bitter reminder of how disposable they considered her to be. Langston cleared his throat, snapping her back to the present. I believe we're ready to finalize the details, he announced, his voice smooth as silk. Clara forced herself to meet his gaze, her heart pounding against her ribcage. This was it, the moment where everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, would either come together or crumble completely. As the pen hovered above the dotted line, she felt the full weight of what was at stake. Not just for her career, not just for her struggling startup, but for every woman who had ever been told they needed to accept less than they deserved. The fluorescent lights above seemed to flicker, mirroring the storm of emotions raging within her. Clara took a deep breath, her hand trembling slightly as she prepared to make a decision that would change everything. The journey to this high-stakes negotiation had been anything but straightforward. 3 years earlier, Clara had been working late nights in a windowless cubicle at Technova Solutions, poring over spreadsheets while her colleagues celebrated another successful quarter without her. She remembered the exact moment when frustration boiled over, finding yet another male colleague promoted over her despite her superior performance metrics. That night, staring at the city lights through the tiny break room window, she sketched out the first prototype of what would become Confronting, a revolutionary AI-driven platform for optimizing supply chain logistics. Her initial attempts to secure funding were met with polite dismissals and condescending smiles. Venture capitalists praised her concept but questioned her ability to execute. Perhaps you should find a technical co-founder, one investor suggested, barely glancing at her meticulously prepared pitch deck. Another advised her to focus on sales, while someone else handled the complex technical aspects. Each rejection only fueled her determination to prove them wrong. The breakthrough came unexpectedly through an old college connection who worked at Silicon Valley Innovators Group. During a casual coffee meeting, Clara demonstrated her prototype on her laptop, showing how it could reduce operational costs by 35% for mid-sized manufacturing companies. Her contact was so impressed that he arranged an introduction to their internal innovation team. Within weeks, Clara found herself presenting to senior executives who understood the potential of her vision. They offered her seed funding on one condition: she had to leave her stable job and commit fully to developing Confronting. Those early days were brutal. Working out of a converted storage unit in Oakland, Clara survived on instant noodles and 4 hours of sleep. She taught herself advanced machine learning algorithms through online courses, often falling asleep with her face pressed against her keyboard. Her first employee, Marcus, a brilliant young programmer she met at a hackathon, joined her after she convinced him to leave a lucrative position at Google. Together, they worked 16-hour days, perfecting their algorithms and building partnerships with small manufacturers willing to test their beta version. The turning point came when Confronting helped a struggling automotive parts supplier reduce their inventory costs by 42% within 3 months. The success story spread quickly through industry networks, attracting attention from larger players. But with growth came new challenges. Established competitors began poaching her talent, offering salaries she couldn't match. Venture capital firms became interested but wanted more control than she was willing to give up. Through it all, Clara maintained her focus on building a company culture that valued innovation and integrity over quick profits. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. During a tech conference in Austin, Clara found herself sharing an elevator with Richard Langston. Their brief conversation about emerging technologies led to an invitation to present QuantumLink's latest developments to his investment team. What started as a routine pitch transformed into a months-long courtship, culminating in today's meeting and the $700 million deal that now lay before her. Yet with each step forward, she encountered new obstacles, from skeptical board members questioning her leadership capabilities to media outlets focusing more on her appearance than her achievements. Every victory seemed to come with its own set of compromises, forcing her to constantly prove her worth in ways her male counterparts never had to. The pen trembled in Clara's hand as she stared at the document before her. Every fiber of her being screamed to sign, to finally claim the validation she'd fought so hard for. Yet something about the revised terms gnawed at her conscience. The original agreement had promised QuantumLink significant autonomy in implementing their technology. Now, buried in legal jargon, she spotted clauses that would effectively hand control to Langston's corporate team. Her chest tightened as she recalled similar situations where promising startups had been absorbed and ultimately dismantled by larger entities. Across the table, Langston's expression remained impassive, but his lawyer's fingers tapped an impatient rhythm on the polished surface. Clara's mind raced through the implications. Accepting these terms would mean sacrificing the core values that had guided QuantumLink's development, the commitment to ethical AI implementation, the dedication to supporting small and medium enterprises, the promise to maintain transparent data practices. Each compromise felt like a betrayal of the mission that had driven her through countless sleepless nights. Her thoughts turned to her team, Marcus, who had left Google for her vision, Priya, who had developed groundbreaking algorithms while caring for her newborn, James, who had relocated his family to join their cause. Their faces flashed before her eyes, filled with trust and hope. How could she explain trading away their collective dreams for short-term success? The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders, threatening to crush the resolve that had carried her this far. Clara's fingers tightened around the pen as she forced herself to breathe deeply. She thought about the countless women who had shared their stories with her, those who had walked away from deals that demanded too much of their dignity, and those who had stayed and regretted it. This wasn't just about QuantumLink anymore, it was about setting a precedent, about proving that success didn't have to come at the cost of one's principles. The fluorescent lights seemed to grow brighter, illuminating the stark reality of her choice. Every instinct told her to walk away, to take back what was rightfully hers, but the fear of failure loomed large, whispering doubts about whether she would ever get another chance like this again. As Clara wrestled with her decision, memories of her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, "Sometimes, child, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what everyone says you should want." Her grandmother had faced similar crossroads running her small bakery decades ago, choosing integrity over expansion when bigger chains offered buyouts. Those lessons had shaped Clara's approach to business, teaching her that true success was measured not just in dollars, but in staying true to one's values. The clock ticked louder in the silent room, each second stretching into infinity as Clara processed the magnitude of her choice. She glanced at the contract again, noticing how the revised terms cleverly masked their true intent beneath layers of corporate legalese. It wasn't just about control, it was about erasing everything QuantumLink stood for, reducing their innovative platform to just another cog in Langston's corporate machine. Her heart pounded as she realized this wasn't merely a business decision, it was a test of everything she believed in. Richard Langston shifted slightly in his seat, his practiced smile never wavering. Clara recognized the look. She'd seen it before in boardrooms and venture capital meetings, the subtle assurance that she would eventually cave under pressure. But something inside her had shifted. The same fire that had driven her to develop QuantumLink from a late-night idea into a game-changing technology now burned brighter than ever. She thought about the late nights spent coding, the sacrifices her team had made, and the countless businesses they'd helped transform. This wasn't just about money, it was about preserving the soul of what they had created together. The fluorescent lights above seemed to dim slightly, throwing the room into sharper relief. Clara's fingers relaxed their grip on the pen as clarity washed over her. She remembered the first time she had presented QuantumLink to a skeptical audience, how she had stood firm despite the doubts and dismissals. This moment felt no different, another test of her conviction, another opportunity to demonstrate that success didn't have to come at the expense of one's principles. Her heart rate slowed as she made her decision, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over her. Whatever happened next, she knew she would face it with the same determination that had brought her this far. Clara placed the pen gently on the table, her movements deliberate and measured. The subtle shift in the room's atmosphere was immediate. Langston's lawyer paused her note-taking, and even Richard himself leaned forward slightly, his carefully maintained composure cracking just enough to reveal genuine surprise. "I'm sorry," Clara began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within her, "but I can't sign this agreement as it stands." The words hung in the air like a challenge, each syllable carrying the weight of everything she had sacrificed and everything she believed in. She watched as comprehension dawned across their faces, not anger or disappointment, but something closer to respect mixed with disbelief. It wasn't every day someone walked away from a $700 million deal, especially not after fighting so hard to get there. "I appreciate everything we've built together in these negotiations," she continued, gathering momentum as she spoke. "QuantumLink has always been about more than just profit margins or market share. We're transforming how businesses operate, creating opportunities for small and medium enterprises to compete on equal footing with industry giants." Her voice grew stronger with each word, fueled by the memories of all those late nights and early mornings spent perfecting their platform. Langston's expression shifted from surprise to curiosity. "You understand what you're giving up here?" he asked, his tone more thoughtful than confrontational. "This isn't just funding, it's access to resources, networks and opportunities that could take your company to unprecedented heights." Clara nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. "I do understand, Mr. Langston. But what you're asking for in return isn't just control, it's the very essence of what makes QuantumLink unique. These revised terms would strip away our ability to maintain the ethical standards and innovative approach that have defined us from day one." She gestured toward the contract. "This document doesn't just represent investment, it represents a fundamental change in who we are as a company." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Clara took advantage of the pause to gather her thoughts, choosing her next words carefully. "When I started QuantumLink, I did it because I saw a gap in the market, not just for better technology, but for a different kind of business model. One that values transparency over secrecy, collaboration over competition, and integrity over quick profits." She locked eyes with Langston, willing him to understand. "These aren't just buzzwords for us. They're the foundation upon which we've built everything." Her lawyer, who had been quietly observing the exchange, nodded in agreement. "We've reviewed similar deals," she interjected, "and while the financial offer is impressive, the operational constraints would effectively neuter QuantumLink's competitive edge. The proprietary algorithms, the customized solutions, all of it would be standardized according to corporate protocols that don't align with your original vision." Clara felt a surge of gratitude toward her legal team, who had been warning her about these red flags from the beginning. Their support gave her the confidence to continue. "What we've created isn't just valuable because of its technical capabilities," she explained, turning back to Langston. "It's valuable because of how we implement it, the relationships we build, the trust we establish, the impact we create. Those things can't be quantified in traditional business metrics, but they're what make QuantumLink truly special." The billionaire investor studied her intently, his earlier condescension replaced by genuine interest. "You're suggesting that maintaining your current structure is worth potentially losing this opportunity?" "Not potentially losing," Clara corrected him firmly. "Making the conscious choice to preserve what matters most to us. There will be other investors, other opportunities. But if we compromise now, we lose the very thing that attracted you to QuantumLink in the first place." She leaned forward slightly, closing the distance between them. "Mr. Langston, you didn't become the most successful investor in history by settling for standard solutions. You recognized innovation when you saw it. What I'm offering isn't just another tech company, it's a new way of doing business." The tension in the room transformed into something else, a shared understanding, perhaps even mutual respect. Clara could see the wheels turning in Langston's mind as he processed her words. For the first time since the negotiations began, she felt they were having an honest conversation rather than a power struggle. "Let me ask you this," Langston said finally, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. "If I were to propose restructuring these terms to better align with your values, would you be open to continuing discussions?" His lawyer shot him a sharp look, but he waved her off. Business evolves, MS. Clara, she supplied, feeling a small victory in his use of her name rather than her title. Ms. Clara, he acknowledged with a slight smile. Perhaps it's time we explored what a true partnership might look like, one that respects both parties' core principles. Clara felt a flicker of hope but tempered it with caution. I'd be willing to discuss that possibility, she replied carefully, provided we start from scratch and agree on fundamental principles before diving into numbers or operational details. As they began outlining potential frameworks for a new agreement, Clara realized this moment represented something far greater than just salvaging a business deal. It was proof that standing firm in one's convictions could lead to unexpected opportunities, that sometimes, taking everything back wasn't about giving up, but about creating space for something better to emerge. The conversation that followed was unlike any negotiation Clara had ever experienced. Instead of focusing on valuation multiples and exit strategies, they delved into philosophical discussions about corporate responsibility, technological ethics, and sustainable growth. Langston surprised her with his depth of understanding regarding the challenges facing modern businesses, particularly in the tech sector. He admitted that many of his previous investments had succeeded financially, but failed to create lasting positive impact, something he increasingly valued in his later years. Their dialogue stretched late into the evening, punctuated by moments of intense debate and unexpected agreement. Clara found herself challenged to articulate not just what QuantumLink did, but why it mattered in the broader context of economic development and social progress. The experience forced her to examine her own motivations and assumptions, leading to revelations about how she wanted to grow her company. What you're describing, Langston observed during one particularly animated discussion, isn't just a business model, it's a movement. But movements require more than passion and good intentions. They need structure, resources, and strategic direction. He paused, considering his words carefully. The question becomes, how do we balance preserving your core values with implementing the necessary infrastructure to scale effectively? Clara appreciated his directness. That's exactly what keeps me awake at night, she admitted. We've managed to stay true to our mission while growing organically, but rapid expansion brings its own set of challenges. How do we maintain our culture while bringing in new talent? How do we protect our intellectual property while collaborating with larger partners? These aren't just theoretical questions, they're daily realities. Their conversation evolved into a brainstorming session, with both parties contributing ideas about how to structure a partnership that honored QuantumLink's principles while providing the resources needed for significant growth. They discussed innovative approaches to corporate governance, including advisory boards that included community stakeholders and industry experts committed to ethical technology development. As the hours passed, Clara noticed something remarkable happening. The initial adversarial dynamic had transformed into genuine collaboration. Langston's team stopped treating her like a subordinate negotiator and began engaging her as an equal partner in crafting a new kind of business relationship. Even his lawyer, initially skeptical of Clara's stance, became invested in finding creative solutions that addressed everyone's concerns. We need to think beyond standard term sheets, Clara suggested, sketching out ideas on a whiteboard. What if we structured the investment around specific impact goals rather than purely financial benchmarks? Investors would receive returns based not just on revenue growth, but on measurable contributions to industry standards, workforce development, and environmental sustainability. Langston nodded thoughtfully. That's actually quite brilliant. It aligns investor interests with long-term value creation rather than short-term gains. He turned to his team. Let's explore how we can formalize these concepts into concrete investment criteria. The energy in the room shifted palpably as they began drafting preliminary frameworks for what could become a revolutionary approach to venture capital investment. Each idea sparked new possibilities, building momentum as they worked through complex details. Clara felt a profound sense of validation, not because she was negotiating with one of the world's most powerful investors, but because her vision was being taken seriously and expanded upon by someone whose experience could help bring it to fruition. By the time they paused for a break, the outlines of a completely new agreement were taking shape. This wasn't just about QuantumLink anymore, it was about creating a template for future investments that prioritized sustainable growth and ethical practices. The irony wasn't lost on Clara. By walking away from the original deal, she had opened doors to something potentially far more transformative. As they prepared to adjourn for the evening, Langston made an unexpected suggestion. Why don't we reconvene tomorrow morning with our full teams? I think we're onto something here that deserves proper attention and resources." He smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Who knows? We might just redefine how impact investing works in the tech sector." Clara returned home that night feeling both exhilarated and overwhelmed. The transformation of her professional crisis into an opportunity for systemic change filled her with cautious optimism. As she reviewed her notes from the day's discussions, she realized they had touched on only the surface of what could be achieved. The real work, building consensus among stakeholders, developing concrete implementation plans, and maintaining the integrity of their vision, lay ahead. Yet something fundamental had shifted. The doubt that had haunted her during those sleepless nights, the fear that her achievements would always be qualified by others' perceptions of her worth, had begun to dissolve. Through standing firm in her convictions, she had earned not just respect but genuine partnership. The road ahead would undoubtedly present new challenges, but for the first time, Clara felt equipped to face them without compromising who she was or what Quantum Link represented. The city lights twinkled beyond her window as she contemplated the journey that had brought her to this point. From the cramped storage unit where Quantum Link had been born to the high-stakes conference room where she had dared to say no to one of the world's most powerful investors, each step had prepared her for this moment. Tomorrow would bring fresh challenges, new obstacles to overcome, but tonight she allowed herself to feel the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, taking everything back wasn't about defeat, it was about claiming space for something greater to emerge.